Have you any idea how successful censorship is on TV? Don't know the answer? Successful, isn't it?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Prepared Mind channel. It is Thursday, 9/11. That's right, today is the 24th anniversary of 9/11. I wonder if they're going to censor this video for saying 9/11. I was driving my truck and the tranny started slipping. So I went to a tranny shop to have them look at the tranny to see if the tranny was broken on my truck. And I'm making this joke because every time Uman says or writes the word tranny, he gets censored. And speaking of censorship, my friends, yesterday's video, which was a prepared mind, well, return to glory days, because we had Vaughn, Uman, and Kaz from the R Syndicate on all at once to discuss the big news of 9/10, which was Charlie Kirk being shot, Charlie Kirk being assassinated, and Charlie Kirk being announced dead, all during the show. Now, it turns out that some bullets were found that had some tranny LGBTQ pedophile phrases and symbols on them, as well as Antifa. But we'll talk about that more when we get to it. Before I even start to respond or discuss anything about Charlie Kirk, and I want you guys to put whatever's on your mind, whatever your thoughts are, ideas, conspiracy theories, conspiracy facts, get them down below into the comment section. We do and will continue to cover this and how it develops. But today, it's 9/11. Do not forget about the terrorists who killed Americans. Thousands of Americans. Blew up the Twin Towers. And, of course, Building 7 fell down all by itself. And that, folks, blowing up and dropping skyscrapers that were designed to be hit, literally, by airplanes and withstand that impact. The buildings were hit, the buildings blew up, the buildings fell down, and that is a feat that has never been done before or since. In fact, I don't think most people know that not an aluminum, shall we say, jet, but a World War II armored bomber didn't hit the World Trade Center. No, it hit the Empire State Building back during World War II. And it did not catch fire, nor did it collapse, nor did it fall down. Nope. Anyways, folks, never before, right? 9/11. And the suspects were the Muslims, because a passport was with a Muslim in the plane. The plane hit the building and exploded and blew out the other side. And huge fireball. Somehow the passport came out of the pocket or out of the suitcase of one of the hijackers, made it through all the explosions, and made it all the way down to the street in perfect condition. So the Muslims were suspect, but also there were other suspects. Like a lot of people accused Larry Silverstein, the man who leased the Twin Towers, took out an insurance policy just before 9/11. And then while being interviewed, he said, I ordered Building 7 to be pulled. Pulled. Being pulled means yanked. The foundation's yanked out from under it. It's used when talking about demolition. And also there were hundreds of Jewish and Israeli workers who just happened to not go to work in Building 7 that day, including Larry Silverstein, including the guy who is Trump's right-hand assistant every day. Yeah, he didn't go to work that day either. And there were dancing Israelis, and then there were dancing and gleefully interviewed Israelis, and the media talked to them while they were smiling about the World Trade Center falling. But Netanyahu came out and reminded us that we should all hate the Muslims. Now, I'm here to tell you, am not anti-Israel. I am not anti-Muslim. I am not anti-this. I'm anti-terrorist assholes. So if you happen to be a Muslim and be a terrorist and be a bad person who wants to commit genocide, I'm just going to call you out on it. I know I'm not out here killing Palestinians, or I'm not out here killing Jews. I'm not causing any harm or anything. And I know you're not either. But that's what they want to do to us, because that's what they have said about us. The Muslims want to kill us all. In fact, that asshole who's running for mayor in New York City came out and said we should not tolerate political violence, right? All the typical political ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba bullshit. Well, I responded and said, I don't believe a fucking word you're saying. I think I called him a jackass, because his religious teachings tell him to lie to the infidels. Infidels meaning Christians. You see, I grew up in America. I grew up with a belief and an understanding that the world admired and wanted American freedoms and liberties. They wanted our standard of living. They liked the fact that the government wasn't allowed to do bad things to its own people. And so I grew up with that, which wasn't a naive belief system, but I didn't realize that I wasn't completely accurate. Many people, especially Israelis and especially Muslims, hate America, hate our Constitution, and hate us. Period. They fucking hate us. So when we say, well, why don't you go back to whatever country you came from because you want Sharia law? They're not here to escape Sharia law. They're here to import it. They're here to overpopulate. They're here to take control, and they're here to impose Sharia law on us. Now, our Talmudic buddies have a different program, and that is to undermine a nation. Just like the communists undermine. They have platforms and planks and programs to destroy countries they don't like by demoralizing them, introducing immoral topics and ideas like homosexuality, transgenderism, cross-dressing, etc., pornography. That's what they do to undermine, and then buy influence from corrupt government officials. Anyone have any doubts about corrupt government officials in the United States of America? So they're here undermining, while Muslims lie to our faces and then turn around and go. This is what's funny. Both the Israelis and the Muslims talk to their own people on internet broadcasts and television, sometimes in English, and tell each other how they're fucking us over in America. It's 9/11, people. Do not forget, it's not about just Muslims. It's about everybody that hates America and then celebrated the destruction and loss of life. Just like the Democrats are out there today. They are singing, they are dancing, they are smiling. And they're telling us how much they hated Charlie Kirk and how we're all next. And then you have the liars who go by the, well, you can lie to the infidel and you can undermine the goyim by lying, and you're allowed to do it. Cheers, folks. God bless America. You need to choose a side. I choose freedom and I choose liberty. Now, let us continue, shall we? We got a lot going on today. The police have been called. To where, you might ask? Well, to the Democrat Party headquarters in Washington, D.C. Why did they respond and show up there? Because a bomb threat occurred. Oh, yeah. Bomb threat. Washington, D.C. I bet the mainstream media wants to accuse you and me and us because this is our retaliation for Charlie Kirk being assassinated. Yeah, I'm going to blame the Democrat Party headquarters in D.C. But that's the story they'll tell. Democrats blaming Republicans, but Republicans don't do that. Now, there are lots of Hamas supporters, pro-Palestinians out there who are the ones who hate Democrats for supporting Israel. Remember back just last year, same time, same bat channel, just 1 year ago, literally 1 year ago, 9/11, Joe Biden was president. Democrats were in charge, folks. Democrats were in charge. So who were Hamas and the Muslims and the crazy Palestinians? Who were they yelling at? Joe Biden, Camel Toes Harris. You got it. All of the Democrats in Congress were getting yelled at and protested at and threatened, right? Because they were supporting Israel and they didn't like it. So I don't know who did the bomb threat. I don't know if there was a real bomb, but look out, folks. The stupid is out there, and it's just going to get more stupid. Okay. I think I've gotten through just about all of the non-Charlie Kirk news, and everything else is going to be Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk. Hang on. Seatbelts fastened, folks. Let's do it. I got an opinion from a subscriber. Sent me a message. And I will not use his name because I did not ask permission to use his name. But he brought up some really good points. Let me see if I can get this all straight. There we are. I was talking about the this bullshit rifle they found. They found the rifle kind of in the woods in some trees. The rifle, apparently a 30-06 long gun, doesn't break down. It's a rifle, right? One piece. It was in a cardboard box. And it had some couple of rounds of ammunition in it. And on each round of ammunition were scrawled some Antifa comments and some LGB pedophile comments. Right? So someone planted it there because who gives a shit what you write on the brass? That's not going to make the bullet fly farther and straighter and more accurate. So I said to this person, I said, I wonder if it's like JFK, John F. Kennedy, planted gun and ammo while the real assassins escaped. Right? Because apparently the sniper type guy, it was a hell of a shot, folks. Hell of a shot. This guy gets up after taking one shot and only one shot. That's nothing like the Antifa people. That's nothing like the trannies out there who just shoot off in the crowd, right? Just like they did with Trump. So this guy gets up, grabs all his equipment, everything, whatever he had, including the rifle, and runs with a rifle, running with rifle that does not break down and fold and go into a backpack. It's a big solid wood stock. It's a big solid fucking barrel. It's got a big fat scope on it, right? Because it's a fucking antique rifle. It's a piece of shit. You know, it's a fucking Mauser in 30-06, which is weird because, anyways, enough of that shit. Enough about those specifics. But he's running with the rifle. Somehow finds a rifle box to put it in and throws it on the ground. Why would you bother taking it with you if you're just going to throw it down? So John F. Kennedy was assassinated. They blame Lee Harvey Oswald on the 6th floor window in the book depository in Dallas because there were 3 pieces of brass on the ground and a worthless old piece of shit Italian-made bolt-action Carcano rifle. A lousy caliber round, a lousy rifle, and the scope was fucking broken, and somehow Lee Harvey Oswald pulled off a miracle. And even as a Marine, he was considered a lousy fucking shot. So he couldn't have pulled it off. Now, so I told my compadre, he's a I'm going to call him an honorary our syndicate member. I wonder if it's like JFK, planted gun and ammo while the real assassins went the other way. And he says, if I had to guess, that's exactly how it went down. These assholes are fossils, and they think in the old ways because they believe the old ways work. And what he's talking about is their old false flags, their old techniques, right? They believe the old ways work. What they fail to realize is the fact that more people are waking up, and we are not as dumb as previous generations, and we pick up on patterns and such, which is typically how they operate and how we preppers are able to figure out most things. Yes, we notice. We're paying attention. We're awake. We've taken the red pill. Some of us have taken Kaz's black pill. We've woken up. We've woken up. And we watch and we figure things out. But, he writes, they insist on continuing to use the ways of old in this day and age, if that makes sense. Also, it could very well be that they realize, just don't give a shit anymore whether the people see what they do or not, until it comes to the missing files of a certain individual. Epstein, if you know what I mean. I know what you mean, man. Yeah. They don't want us to know about that. They don't want us to notice or know that. But yeah, it's almost like they couldn't give a shit about getting caught. And then I'm going to hearken back to the Muslims who tell us to our face, oh yeah, we just want to come to America. We're asylum. We're migrants. We need help, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as they show up at the nearest mosque, they go listen to some guy say, you can rape women. You can rape little girls. You can stab people. You can murder them. We can force Sharia law on them. We can go to their stores and tell them to stop selling pork, stop selling alcohol, no more gambling. You have to provide halal food for them to eat. Right? They tell us all these things. We're going to come into your houses whether you like it or not. And they say that because they don't care. The same way the Israelis go on television. You can find Netanyahu sitting in his own living room with his family around him talking about how he's going to screw us over, how they use America, how they use us for money and weapons and spreading lies and propaganda. And what does the mainstream media do? All they've done all fucking day long is lie to us, gaslight us, feed us horse shit, piss down our backs, and tell us it's raining and it's good for us. That's what's going on. They don't care. They'll do it right to us. They'll do it right to our faces. What do you guys want to talk about, folks? Get it down below. But yeah, I mean, get this. Talk about a media bullshit story. FBI, Utah officials have, quote, good footage of the Kirk shooter. They were able to track him from hours before shooting to when he jumped off the building and ran through the neighborhood. They found the weapon in the woods. Again, why would the shooter take the weapon and risk being seen with a gun while running from a scene of a fucking murder? And then decide just to drop it? Right? And then this person that shows up, it took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours before the internet could ID who this person was. And then when they finally reveal who they say the internet has told us who it is, it's a transgender person. And the transgender person goes, well, yeah, I wrote a shitty song about Charlie Kirk being killed, but it's a coincidence. Or was this person being set up as a patsy? Now, the film they have, the pictures they took, show the person looking up, looking around, but we all know about the rubber masks now. We all know about the rubber masks. How do we know that's actually the shooter? They haven't arrested the person. Well, if they found them, if they followed him, have hours of footage of this person running around, and being on the roof with a rifle and running with the rifle and throwing the rifle. They have that footage. Why is that person not arrested? Why is that person able to defend themselves and go, that wasn't me? Do they have an alibi? As far as anyone being happy and writing songs about Charlie Kirk's death, Charlie Kirk's assassination, or wanting Charlie Kirk to die and others like him die. Well, because if you watched and looked at the internet today, every Democrat who hated Charlie Kirk before the assassination was smiling, laughing, singing, jumping up and down, exclaiming how happy they were that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Right? They're all happy about it. I mean, gleefully happy about it, excited. But the elected officials, they decided to take the high road, because you can trust them. In any event, right? So there's one person who they're accusing and saying, well, that must be the person right there. Why haven't they arrested him? In any event, folks, it's just the stupid is really off the hook. But the head of the Democrat snake, Barack Obama, decided he would weigh in online about Charlie Kirk being killed. Now, remember, Barack Obama is the one who said Trayvon Martin, down here in Florida, was killed by a racist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, Hitler-esque guy named George Zimmerman, who happened to be Hispanic, not German. And then he said Trayvon Martin looked like he could have been his own son if he had had a son, sparking more anger and hatred and frustration out of communities. When I say communities, I mean the black community. But Barack Obama, expressed his thoughts on the assassination and how wrong it is. And so did Kamala, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, and all the asshole Democrats, including that Mandami asshole that I told you about a few minutes ago. They joined Obama in pretending they are not the ones at fault for promoting conflict, anger, and violent interactions, as well as just directly promoting violence. And I wrote most of them back, calling them out on their bullshit, as if they would even bother fucking reading, which they won't ever, ever, ever do. Like Kamala Harris, she set up bail for people in 2020 to come out of jail and go out and start attacking cops again. I mean, it's just, they're fucking hypocrites, folks. And this is the world we're in, right? So I am exhausted today. From last night to all night long to waking up early and then going to work all day and then having everyone and their brother and mother get a hold of me and you and everyone else. Everyone's talking about this. They're pissed off, extremely pissed off. So I have some other thoughts. We'll talk about them, but I want to know your thoughts. So please get them down below, right? And this one really is the one that got me. Down here in Florida, there's a representative named Byron Donalds. He wants to be the governor of Florida after Ron DeSantis is done. And this is what he had to say about the Charlie Kirk assassination. This is Byron Donalds, Republican from Florida. He says, "We can't retreat from the crazy left. If you do, you will turn this country over to them." I have to tell you, he's 100% right. If we back down, if we back up, if we kowtow, if we take a fucking knee to any of these people that hate America, which includes Islam and a lot of nations, which includes Israel, Iran, all these fucking nations hate us. If we retreat from them, if we succumb, if we get in, if their terrorism works to silence us, to censor us, then they win. We're giving the country to them. Now, several Republicans made comments like this. And the Democrats are like, the Republicans had a chance to bring peace, to talk everything down, to stop it, to stop all of the violent rhetoric. I'm going to give you, and you've seen this before, this is how Democrats talk, but they're saying, if you say we can't retreat from the crazy left, we give the country to them, that's bad, that's really bad, but Democrats can say this.
There are public figures today, yesterday, and the day before predicting and all but calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets.
Obviously, Republicans, I think, are the biggest threat to democracy. We don't separate right-wing extremists and Republican Party anymore. Republicans, I think, are the biggest threat to democracy. We don't separate right-wing extremists and Republican Party anymore. Republicans are the biggest threat to democracy.
This means war. That is where we are. We are at war with these people. These folks are evil.
And all but calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets.
The ones who are calling for mass violence and rioting in the streets were fucking Democrats, right? So Byron Donald says, we can't retreat from the crazy left. Well, they're also not just crazy. They're gaslighting, lying, bullshitting, exaggerating pieces of terrorist shit for their support of BLM, a terror group, Antifa, a terror group. Now, I ask the question, is this the shot on Charlie Kirk? What's the name of his organization? Turning Point USA. Is this assassination mark the change in direction, the turning point for our country? Is there going to be a major move to purge America of crazy, dangerous lunatics who are anti-American? Is this about to happen? Politicians, folks, are now becoming very loud. A lot of them, like Byron Donalds, have seen and heard enough of this shit. Now, I know that the people out there who hate this country, whether they're British, whether they're Iranian, whether they're Canadian, Australian, Israeli, it doesn't matter. If you hate this country, they want us fighting with each other and yelling at each other and killing each other. They want that. But how does America solve its problems? Well, Charlie Kirk, interestingly, Republicans call him moderate. A nice guy, moderate. Like I said, I was kind of like a 9 out of 10 with Charlie Kirk because I thought he was too soft, too nice, too kind. But that's just who he was, and that's good for him, or was good, and his memory will be that he was always nice enough to openly talk, calmly and sanely make suggestions, discuss, allow people to give them their thoughts and ideas, and then he would take it, absorb it, respond, whether it was political science or religion or anything. He was a nice guy. In other words, it was polite discourse and debate. But the enemy of freedom in America just assassinated a polite voice of reasonable debate. Is this a major change in direction? Is this a turning point for the United States of America? And will our enemies come after us? Okay. Let's see. What have we got here? I've got something. I think you're going to want to hear this. This is from somebody on the internet named John Cocktoston. He says, I've been a part of the political process for 30 to 40 years, and one side has called me Nazi, fascist, racist, bigot, homophobe, transphobe, threat to democracy, domestic terrorist, and too many other wonderful things to mention. All lies. I've accused them of being socialist and insane. Truths that are easy to prove. Recently, I've begun calling them pieces of shit because of their violence. I'm 60 years old and I've devoted my whole life to sports and self-defense, where my only goal is to help people get better and protect themselves. That's who the other side is demonizing and dehumanizing with their constant drumbeat of insanely dangerous rhetoric. I'm 60, and I've never hit anyone that didn't try to hit me first. Never been arrested or jailed with a perfect, clean record, and that's the person who's been called all of the names above. How am I supposed to remain decent with a groupthink whose default position is to want me dead simply for my political beliefs? I'm not being combative. I'm genuinely interested in your response because I'm done talking. The next one of these left-wing lunatics that lays hands on me without permission is going to get a crash course in what happens when you mess with someone who just wanted to be left alone. And for the record, I'm a conservative independent, which means we can disagree and I won't shoot you in the neck or call you a name. Anyways, I want to thank John for that. Folks, a lot of people are expressing opinions and thoughts and feelings very similar to this, that they just want to be left alone, that they just want to help people, right? These are the silent majority types that were spoken of by, was it Pat Buchanan used that, the silent majority? Or was that Barry Goldwater? I can't remember. Anyways, the silent majority, in other words, people who just want to live their lives. They don't want to get involved. But we've been sucked into this, and as soon as we engage, we're called the bad names, while the actual bad guys are out there committing crimes. Right? We haven't done anything wrong, but they want to call us, me and you, the terrorists, the bad guys. Well, get this. Another leftist proves the point for us. This stand-up comedian, asshat, called Charlie Kirk a demon. And he mocked the killing, calling it a white-on-white crime. And he says, I'm glad it happened. I got giddy reading it. Okay, this guy's a comedian. And he's allowed to have a political opinion. He's allowed to say what he wants. I don't think what he said is a crime. I want him to say shit like that. In fact, every Democrat that is laughing, singing, dancing, making jokes, applauding it, and even calling for more, I want them to keep doing it. The same reason I want Hillary Clinton to live to be 200 years old. Because I want everyone to see who they are and understand how dangerous, evil, bad they are. But when we look at this comedian, yet again, Democrats are extremely extra nasty. Okay, well, that's how I will keep playing it then. You know, there's an old expression. You guys have probably heard it. You fight fire with fire. You don't fight fire by sticking your head in the sand and sticking your ass in the air so someone can screw it. Right? You don't make yourself a weak target and turn your back on the enemy. You fight fire with bigger fire. And if you're going to fight, you don't fight to lose. You don't fight for a draw. You don't fight to walk away. You fight to win. These fucking people, folks, I got nothing. I have nothing for them except, well, contempt. Contempt, because that's what they deserve. Contempt. Well, I've got to the 30-minute mark. I have a couple more things I want to talk about, but I want to hear what you guys are thinking. So I'm not going to show the prepared mind bullet transition because I just don't think it's right to do it this time. But what I am going to do is turn the show over to you guys as the inner circle. Yes, the inner circle of the R Syndicate. And yesterday we had the founding members of the R Syndicate, and that video has been censored, removed, pulled. They said, we're going to give you a warning. They give me 3 warnings and pull down 3 videos because that's how they roll. They don't give me a strike anymore because, well, YouTube wants to put, well, they want me to make videos so that they can monetize them, and they make money off of me and you, asshats. All right, everybody. Let's see what you want to talk about. Mr. Uman, you are in charge. Charlie Kirk was assassinated yesterday. And yes, that's the topic we'll all be discussing. It is 9/11, but Charlie Kirk is the top. And Deplorable Yankee Redneck says, hey, Charlie Kirk was assassinated after he said Israel infiltrated our government. Now, one of my issues a month ago and more was Charlie Kirk was always pro-Israel. In fact, everyone has heard of the term Judeo-Christian. Have you not? Uman, have you heard the term Judeo-Christian? We all have heard it because that's how we've been taught to refer to our Christian beliefs, as being Judeo-Christian. Do you know that that was never in the American English vernacular? It wasn't an expression until after World War II, when the newly formed nation of Israel and its founders coined the phrase Judeo-Christian in order to gain support from American Christians for the nation of Israel, a secular state. Anyways, Charlie Kirk began to look at Israel after months and months and months of everyone screaming, look, dude, it looks like genocide. It looks like they're killing women and children. It certainly looks like they're not being nice. In fact, they have a group of assassins or soldiers, if you will, whose trademark is one of two shots, the head shot or the neck shot, believe it or not. I know that that would be what we would call anecdotal evidence, not direct evidence, but anecdotal, something to think about. But yeah, Charlie Kirk started asking and talking, or he's being asked about, and he actually started looking, and despite his best efforts to ignore, he couldn't. I think the guy was just too freaking honest. He couldn't ignore the fact that Israel, through AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, controls our government. And folks, it's not me saying it. Listen to Benjamin Netanyahu. Listen to Israeli politicians throughout history for the last 50, 60 years claiming that they, Israel, control American politicians. And who do they hate the most? Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie. You know, who takes none of their money and wants the Epstein list exposed. Guess who was talking about the Epstein list? Ooh, Charlie Kirk. I think the day before he was assassinated. Or at least very recently, saying that the president, Mr. Trump, needs to release the Epstein files. So Charlie Kirk essentially pivoted on his heel and started walking back and examining Israel. And he dies. Now, has everyone heard of the concept of Deadpool? It actually came out in the 1980s in the movie, a Dirty Harry movie with, Clint Eastwood. The movie was called Deadpool. And then we have the superhero comic book dude, Deadpool, right, who got his name off of a board. And a Deadpool is people play a game and they pick, right, a number of people who are most likely to die. And after a certain amount of time, whoever has the most dead celebrities or dead famous people wins the Deadpool. Well, if I were on a Deadpool list, I would be very concerned. And Charlie Kirk was on a lot of lists for people who would be and could be and should be targeted for their opinions. Now, Charlie Kirk, of course, would make it to that list because he's very popular. He's very Christian. And he's very persuasive with young people in colleges. He has done so much to get the young people to start logically or express and expand their logical thinking so they could argue for themselves, so they could think for themselves. Charlie was very important. His Turning Point USA was responsible for thousands and thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of votes for Trump that otherwise wouldn't have voted or would have voted for Camel Toes Harris. I don't know if Charlie Kirk was enough to push it from a Kamala victory to Trump because it was such a blowout anyways, but he was a contributing factor, folks, a very important contributing factor for the future of America. But so Charlie Kirk, definitely on a Deadpool list. You know who else is there? Big Marge, Thomas Massey, Pete Hegseth. Has anyone got that one? Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, formerly the Secretary of Defense, because he is a very strong Christian and because his tattoos express solidarity with Teutonic Knights, as in Crusader Knights, who weren't interested in saving the Holy Land for the Jews. They were interested in saving it from the Saracens, the Muslims. In any event, Charlie Kirk was pointing these things out, and that was going to be his ass. Thank you, deplorable Yankee redneck. Mr. Uman, who is next? We've got Chin Music. Someone reported that guy who is tackled with the BB gun is an Ashkenazi. Can't confirm, can you? I did not confirm jack shit, but many people have confirmed his identity. He is a old Ashkenazi Jewish American who's registered as a Republican. That's what I saw came from a background search on this guy. He was tackled because he was holding a rifle. It was just a BB gun. The BB gun was not used to shoot Charlie Kirk. Why would an old man in his 70s bring a BB rifle to a Charlie Kirk debate? So what's the point? Why is Chin Music bringing this up? So there was a shooter with a high-powered rifle somewhere, shot Charlie Kirk and took him the fuck out. That guy needed to run and get away. If the police could be distracted by a, shall we say, attention-grabbing asshole like this old man, that would attract a lot of police attention, a lot of camera attention, a lot of witness attention on him. They're not going to be looking where? Wherever the shooter actually was and running. The fact that he is an Ashkenazi, that is a European Jew. That's who the Ashkenazis were. Isn't that interesting how Jewish people share the word Nazi with the Nazi party? Find that interesting, don't you? Just interesting. So they also showed pictures of that guy in drag. How interesting is that? Yeah, I don't believe he's a Republican. I believe he was a fucking shill, a spy, an insider. But if he's a Ashkenazi Jew and therefore more than likely sympathetic to anything that Israel wants, because it's all about their tribe, right? It's all about their tribe. If they had a shooter, if Israel, and I'm putting the word if here, if Israel had a shooter who took the shot and they needed a major distraction down below, eyes off shooting location, eyes on the street, this guy would have been extremely useful to have in place. Somebody who's more than willing to go, I got a BB gun, and make a big fucking deal out of it. And then they have to let him go because he didn't murder Charlie. It wasn't a real gun. But why the fuck would you bring a rifle, a BB-looking rifle, to a debate crowd unless you knew something was going to happen and you were told to make a scene? Well, if they can tie this guy to whoever the real shooter is, now you have an accomplice to the crime. You see? If this guy, right, helped this guy get away and they catch this guy, Well, this guy is an accomplice because he purposefully tried distracting the police. But the shooter did get away. In fact, at Salt Lake City Airport, a private jet took off about an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot. As soon as the plane hit the air, they turned off the transponder. It became invisible to the air traffic control system. It wasn't invisible, folks, to radar. It wasn't invisible to the military, but it was invisible to civilian air traffic monitoring, which you and I can do with the internet. You can follow planes everywhere. I find it interesting that they can turn them off. Well, folks, a short while later, that plane returned to Salt Lake City. Turned the transponder back on. Landed the plane. Fascinating, no? All right, let us continue if we shall. All of these things, folks, these little pieces of anecdotal information, thoughts. But they want to make sure we don't get key pieces of information. Real solid proof. They don't want that. Baddest Diving Frog says he's either stupid or he did what he was instructed to do. I think he's speaking of the BB shooter, right? Yeah, I mean, that guy, for all he knows, he was contacted. They're like, okay, old guy, listen to me. We know you're an Ashkenazi and you're going to support Israel, right? Right. Now, this is just complete conjecture and theater for you guys. You guys know, right? We know that you love Israel, right? Shake your head there. Good, man. Okay. What we need you to do tomorrow is go to Charlie Kirk's show. We want you to sneak in a BB rifle. We know you have one, or we put one in your house. Go in the closet and look. There it is. Yes, good. You're to bring that. You hide it under your coat or your shirt, and you act inconspicuous and don't make a scene. If something crazy happens, you'll know what it is, and you are to pull out the rifle, make a scene, and distract everyone as long as you can. You can even pull your pants down around your ankles so the police have to drag you around. That way, everyone just has to watch you. You are to be a loud, obnoxious asshole. Understood? Good. I'm glad you understand. You'll be rewarded later. Click. Anyways, yeah, I bet he was instructed to do that in whatever form or fashion. That was John Theater, right? Of course, I love to put in gross exaggeration, conjecture, and other things just to make it more exciting and fun for me. But I don't think he's stupid. I think he knew what he was doing. I think that guy is an accessory to the crime. I think they will not be able to prove he was an accessory to the crime because the shooter did get away. The plane did take off and land. Whoops. And now they have a patsy, a supposed tranny who supposedly hates Charlie Kirk, who they have to put somehow at the scene of the crime with a murder weapon, which we now have a murder weapon with a palm print on it even. Oh, how about that? A palm print? So the person walking around that they say is the guy/girl keeps his fist clenched so he doesn't leave fingerprints anywhere. Right? That's what people are saying. Oh my God, this guy's been trained. He's got his fist clenched so he doesn't touch handrails or anything. I'm like, really? Right? Wearing gloves would have been conspicuous, of course. But when you're in your 20s, you don't have to use a handrail to climb stairs because you're in your 20s. And somebody who was trained not to touch anything wouldn't need to clench their fists. That's an amateur. A professional can walk along and act like everything's fine because they're a professional. They know not to touch anything. And they certainly know that you wipe down the fucking weapon before you drop it in the woods, right? So could they have gotten someone to put a palm print on this thing? Oh, sure. You bet. Have I got proof and evidence? Nope, don't have any proof. And that's the thing. Uman says, today I heard someone at the ATF, that's the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, they said they found the rifle on the roof. Oh, conflicting stories, eh? Conflicting reports out of the government, eh? Yeah, it's hard to keep lies straight, folks. If you speak facts, if you speak your truth, and you're consistent with who you are as a person, it's easy to keep your story straight. If you've got a bullshit lie, tell this person one lie and tell that person another lie, well, your lies start to conflict, don't they? Yeah. Just like the media. A host on CBS named Nate Burleson, they brought their bullshit rhetoric out, their lie, and said Republicans need to reflect on political violence after Charlie Kirk's assassination, as if Republicans are known for their political violence. Completely ignores and forgets that it's people like the video I showed you earlier. Joe Biden blaming Republicans while threatening us with being locked down, thrown in jail, calling us names, right? And these idiot news people saying Republicans are evil. And now we have the same community screaming that white people are evil, that we're racist, that we're murderers, that white people need to be wiped off the face of the earth. Unbelievable shit, right? This guy, Nate Burleson, is a jackass. It's Democrats, it's trannies, it's anti-Americans that are harassing and stabbing women, as well as mass murdering children. They're the ones, not you and I. But that's how they play the game. The left is going to gaslight and lie about you and me, and they're going to lie to themselves and each other to convince themselves of their own lies. Read some of the left-wing shit out there, folks. It is maddeningly illogical and full of absolute cow crap. Unbelievable stuff. Okay, Mr. Uman, let's have some more fun on here. And it's Robin G checking in. And she says, I'm still upset about Charlie's assassination. I am too. I have been pissed off all day. I'm pissed off all day. And she says, this takes SHTF to another level. The left has blood on their hands. They do. The sellout government operatives in Congress, in the Senate, in the bureaucracy, in the judges' seats, they have blood on their hands. Not just in D.C., but every Democrat state, every Democrat city, every Democrat mayor, every Democrat judge, every Democrat police chief, every Democrat police officer that allow these leftists to violently attack and then to arrest them and let them go, and for the judges to let them out of the court. No jail sentence. What they've taught these people is you can get away with whatever violence you want, and we'll cover for you, and we'll excuse it away. We'll make excuses. This is Charlie's fault because he didn't agree with what we said. Remember, I'm going to take you guys back. This is important. This is actually very important. There was a term several years ago, and it escaped the college campuses. It was called microaggression. The concept that words hurt people. And because some liberal fuckwad is hurt by a word, they have a right to act and respond and retaliate with real violence. Because you used a microaggression, they can use a big aggression against you. Remember that. So anything we say, like Charlie Kirk, is taken as an act of violence. And so therefore, they have a right to come after us. And then the Democrats in charge, again, politicians, law enforcement, lawyers, and judges, let them out of jail to continue to commit acts of violence. They've been taught they're not to blame. They've been taught they're not at fault. They've been taught it's justified to commit acts of violence. And then they turn around and accuse us of being fucking violent, that we need to reflect. I tell you what, I reflected all fucking night, Robin. I reflected all about it. I have not called for violence. In fact, every time anything I say remotely sounds like I'm suggesting violence is the cure, I say, do not commit acts of violence. Do not break the law. I will talk about our rights, our right to throw the government out on its ear, right? But I say, do not break the law. because I do not want that responsibility. It is not that time yet for you and me and others to say, that's it. It's time to fix our problems. There is no other solution. And I told you what Byron Donald said. Right? I think we're getting closer. C says, but, John, a Republican's going to write a strongly worded letter and hurt some some feelings. Yeah, you bet. Strongly worded letters. And these acts of and words of niceness coming out of people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and other political figures and other bureaucratic figures trying to suck up and get their moment of glory out of all this. I don't want any fucking glory over this. This entire thing is horrifying. But these people are out there for photo ops and popularity contests. I want the problem fixed because I have children, I have family, and I don't want them hurt. And I see a lot of hurt coming. A lot of hurt, especially from jackasses like Nate Burleson or political figures like Barack, the lying sack of shit Obama, or Hillary, who has had more people Arkansited. And the left, folks, the regular street lunatic Democrat, they are so retarded that if all they had to do was basic math from first grade in order to win $1 million, they wouldn't win 50. They're that stupid. All right, we still got a little time left in the show. Mr. Uman, what do we have? Redneck Roughneck says the demon rats just don't see it. And I'm thinking they may have went too far. How much more pushing before we go over the edge? And that's what a lot of people are concerned about. A lot of people are concerned about it. Tulsi Gabbard came out, the director of national intelligence. And after the assassination, she called what happened, quote, the very definition of terrorism. What happened is the very definition of terrorism. People are going to stop talking about the Muslim takeover, the Israeli influence over our government, the World Economic Forum influence over our economy, the bankers' control and ownership of our monetary and financial systems. You can't talk about them because you need to be scared. You'll lose your job. You'll have your bank account closed, or you'll be violently attacked. That's terrorism. Terrorism is the act of using a threat of violence or actual violence to enact and exact political change. See, it's not an act of war, it's an act of terrorism to politically control you. And that doesn't mean Democrat and Republican. That's not what politics is. Those are political parties. Politics, policy, belief systems should come from the law, our cultures, our history, and tradition. The mainstream media wants you to believe that politics comes from the TV and the leaders of the political parties, right? But when it comes to terrorism, threats of force and use of actual force to terrorize or scare people into being silent and conforming to the mainstream ideological values being thrown at us by people who aren't afraid to speak up, like the Israelis, like the Muslims, like the government in DC. See, they're all responsible. The mainstream media, judges out there who want to silence you, they're all part and parcel and responsible for battling and waging their war, folks. Their war of control over you and me. Their war of control and destruction over our law, the U.S. Constitution. That's what this is about. You know, if Charlie had no influence and they owned everything, why would they care what he says? Now, there's this other topic, and then I'm going to end on this. Thank you, Redneck Roughneck. In World War II, both the Germans and the American and British side sent huge squadrons of airplanes, bombers, over each other's cities and dropped tons of bombs. I mean, literally hundreds of tons of bombs. They fly over and just drop them. But before they hit or got to the targets, the enemy would fire anti-aircraft guns at the airplanes. And they would explode in the air. They would airburst the rounds. And that was called flak. Flak. And it would destroy and tear apart airplanes, blow up the engines, etc., tear off the wings. Flak. So when you're getting flak, when you're getting weapons shot at you, that means you're over the target you're supposed to be hitting. So if you start criticizing Muslims in Washington, D.C., if you start criticizing the bankers in the World Economic Forum and countries like, well, North Korea, South Korea, Iran, Israel, Syria, Turkey, Ukraine, Poland, if you criticize anyone and you start getting flack, it means you're over the target. And Charlie Kirk, my friends, was moving into position over the target. And that's why he got flack. And because he is so powerful, or rather was, sadly, he is no longer able to fight this battle, this war. But you and I, my friends, are. So get prepared with food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and your plan. Get prepared. Keep talking. If you stop talking, if you stop sharing with friends, coworkers, family, if you stop, then terrorism has defeated you. And Tulsi Gabbard says this is the very definition of terrorism. Do not stop fighting. Do not become afraid. Get right back over that target and start dropping truth bombs, my friends. God bless America. Semper Fi.